fine. So Mariya Boyko from Sheridan College and also from RedThread Innovations. Mariya will talk about reimagine mathematical instructions, how AI-powered ed tech platforms are redefining what we teach and how we teach it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Marina and Snivana, for
You're
inviting
welcome.
me. I really love this conference and just Fields Institute's focus on pedagogy. Also, I'm glad to see a few other people who, I've been working with for a long time. So Craig, Pam, and Richard, thanks a lot for coming. I'm really happy to see you again. First of all, just from my background, my original background is in teaching, so I have a teaching degree. I was originally going to teach mathematics for high school, and then as I studied more, like learned more about mathematical pedagogy, and then joined grad school to learn a bit more about history of mathematical pedagogy. I got drawn a bit into ed tech space, just exploring how we can teach mathematics to lots of students all at the same time, how we can use technology to actually help advance mathematical pedagogy. And on the rise, like with the rise of new AI tools, I mean, maybe I would say first year, maybe 2 years, like 2022, 2023, I think some educators were still on the fence trying to say, oh, maybe we can keep AI out of education. Maybe it's not the best way. But right now, it's pretty clear that we do need to be all on board. We do need to teach our students how to use AI efficiently, how to make sure that AI tools are enhancing mathematical pedagogy. And in fact, they're pretty capable of enhancing various like pedagogical tools that we already have. So that's what we're going to chat about today. And I'm just going to share my screen with slides. I clicked share and it's lagging. So, okay, just a second. Okay, let's see. Can everyone see my slides? Okay.
Yes, we can.
I can see them. Can you see them? Okay, perfect. All right. Yeah, so today I just wanted to talk to you guys about exploring this intersection of AI and different adaptive learning platforms and how they affect mathematical pedagogy. So just in terms of my recent experience, as I mentioned, I'm an ed tech these days, and I've been working with large and small learning management systems. So LMS and basically anything that helps you organize the content, anything that helps you manage your relationships with students and like entering the grades, assigning homework. All of those tools are broadly speaking called learning management systems. We're just going to look at different types of them today as well. Yeah, so basically, first we'll just talk about the evolution of different platforms and this shift from textbooks or static resources to AI-powered adaptive learning systems. We'll talk about which gaps and which implicit curriculum is introduced through those platforms. And we'll also chat about gamification, about empowering teachers, a little bit of technical details, and we'll also talk about personalization paradox and how personalizing, like over-personalizing of some of those education tools can be helpful or not so helpful in some cases. And then we'll also look at a few specific models as we need to, and then we'll just discuss what are the action points that we can take as mathematics educators next. Yeah, so basically in the last, actually broadly speaking, in the last 10 years, we've been seeing more and more of a shift from static educational resources to dynamic ones. And this shift is not new. So, you know, we've come pretty long way from static textbooks, which are getting updated very slowly, all the way to textbooks which are getting updated every year, and all the way to pretty dynamic resources where each instructor is composing their own curriculum and adjusting from semester to semester, sometimes from week to week. And also we're seeing just like historically, 'cause again, I come from like the history of mathematical pedagogy. Historically, we're seeing that curriculum is changing pretty frequently. So we're talking about like 50 years ago, it would be every 10 years or so that curriculum would change. These days, every few years, there is at least some addition to curriculum, if not internationally, then in certain states or certain provinces. And what is replacing those static resources? So we're looking at what we call platform ecosystems. So digital platforms, large and small, are becoming core instructional resources, and there are not supplementary tools anymore. So I would say maybe even 5 years ago, some teachers would say, yes, my class is using their textbook, but I am also letting them use Khan Academy or Dreambox or Prodigy as something fun or as something that's supplementary, something extra. Right now, we're moving towards accepting like Khan Academy or Dreambox or IXL as being the core of the curriculum other than something that's an add-on. And also teachers structure their lesson planning more according to various digital resources than before. So what are those edtech platforms offering, broadly speaking, and what is that they do? So broadly speaking, what those platforms can do is they can gather lots of data and they can understand learners' performance in real time. So they're tracking response accuracy, they're tracking time spent on tasks, error patterns, interaction behaviors across multiple like data points per session. So for example, how long they're watching a video, how often they answer something right, when they answer something wrong, what was the behavior pattern before that. And for me as a product manager for ed tech tools, those are the things that product managers actually write and communicate for like to developers. What are those data points, what they need to be, why those data points need to exist. And also, once that data is gathered, then we go into algorithmic decision making. So machine learning algorithms actually analyze those patterns of learners' behavior, and they typically use probabilistic methods to estimate what's next for this learner. So for example, when you see very many learners, let's say millions of users, going through the same set of, let's say, mathematical problems, the algorithm can determine what is the behavior of underperforming student looks like, what's the behavior of overperforming student looks like, and what the behavior of average student looks like. And then when a brand new student logs in, they start answering some questions, the algorithm is able to say, oh, looks like the student is a little bit underperforming. Let me gather up some material, and like maybe the content that they see next is going to be on par with with their current academic level. And basically they adapt. They adapt to ensure often that learners are about 80% successful. Actually, there is a lot of research apparently behind this like 80% chance of being successful rate, because actually there's been some studies that prove that if your learners are like about 80% successful when they keep trying some new things, they will be a bit more engaged. This is also similar research has been done for various gaming platforms. So just a fun fact. And as I said, like the learning pathway adjustment often occurs based on those patterns. When the platform is well developed, also there's a mechanism to communicate to instructors what are the common patterns of learners' behavior, so instructor can take that into account when they plan their next lesson. And of course, there are limitations to it. Like, I mean, it sounds sometimes like some people say it sounds too good to be true. Of course, there are limitations, and algorithms, for example, may misdiagnose students' conceptual error and like mistake it for like something else in students' behavior. So, for example, someone can keep making careless mistakes, but they're close enough for the algorithm to think that it's some kind of conceptual error. Also, just in general, machine learning algorithms sometimes overemphasize like procedural fluency of students. So for example, if it's already 20th question, which looks the same, the student might have just like memorized how to go through the motions. And yeah, also what we see, so what the algorithms are gathering is just what the student has put like into their computer. They don't know the backstory of what student is doing behind the scenes, if they looked the answer up, if they consulted with their peers. So all of that data obviously cannot be derived just from algorithm gathering. Yeah, and then basically what we have, so those shortcomings, they fall into a few categories. So standards deprioritization, optimization paradox, or rich task avoidance. So just AI systems can automatically skip or minimize some lower frequency standards. So, for example, when I was working with Prodigy Education, we had AI-based algorithm that kept skipping over certain standards that just did not have enough content in the system. And that was pretty difficult to fix for the developers. Then, yeah, optimization paradox, like sometimes algorithms can optimize for just like purely measurable outcomes. So like completion rate, correct answer, and they can't really optimize for deeper understanding, or they can't really measure students' creativity for solving problem creatively. And also it's uh, depending on how your learning platform is set up, a lot of times open-ended questions are just harder to test for. And it's hard to test how exactly the student derived their answer. Yeah. Okay, so in terms of personalization at scale, there are a few promises and there are a few pitfalls which large learning management systems are offering right now. So the overall promise is that adaptive platforms create really tailored learning pathways based on continuous assessments of students' academic performance and individual pacing. So high-performing students can accelerate through the content that they've mastered, and others can receive additional scaffolding if needed. So that's the overall promise. So this is how and why the platforms, learning management systems that adapt, this is why they originally were constructed. But on the other hand, there are some pitfalls and key questions, I would say, to keep in mind for us as an educators. So one thing we need to ask is, do adaptive systems maybe unknowingly, inadvertently, do they widen achievement gaps by just permanently tracking students into different remedial pathways and just like over accelerating one type of students and just keeping underperforming students at their own level? Do they challenge them enough? And the answer to this question, like depending on the platform that you use, can be different from educator to educator. For example, I've seen some educators complaining a bit that IXL is, like over accelerating some students, keeping others at the same level. Again, there's no right or wrong answer for that, but definitely something to keep in mind. Another question is in terms of isolation risk. So when your students receive personalized content, sometimes that could mean that every student is working on their own thing. And for some students, that can feel isolated. So for some students, it's very important to say, I'm working on the same set of homework problems. Let me look over my peer's shoulder, like not to copy something, but just to see what is that we're doing, collaborating. So for some students, it's very important. For others, not so much, but definitely something to keep in mind. And then also just being mindful that algorithms may sometimes reinforce this fixed mindset where if a student is noticing that they are like overperforming and they always get more difficult tasks than everyone else, for some students, it can make them think that, oh, like I'm probably like above my class level. And then, if they stop overperforming, then they might get upset. Or for other students who see that they're underperforming, constantly getting like maybe more scaffolding, they might think that this is where they are, and they may not see like the growth mindset into it. So something to keep in mind. Okay. And then also gamification. So gamification in general is a pretty great tool that non-AI learning tools have been offering. With emergence of AI, they became even more effective. On the other hand, there are a few things to keep in mind in terms of keeping gamification right on par with the learning. So it's actually enhancing the pedagogical strategy that the teacher is using. So in terms of engagement, we're seeing that usually when at least one aspect of learning is gamified, it's either with badges, with streaks, avatars, leaderboards, we're seeing over 3 times more engagement and just like even increased amount of logins into different platforms. For example, back at Prodigy, our team was doing internal research that actually saw the result of like 3 times increase of student engagement. I keep hearing other platforms have even more engagement when they up the gamification features. And also another thing, which is, I believe, pretty common across different educational platforms, is that there is over 60% of completion rate for learners who are exposed to various gamified like platforms. If you gamify your content somehow, even smallest bits like badges or streaks really increase the completion rate of tasks. And in fact, I keep hearing more and more educators in real like classroom, they introduce more and more gamification, even if it's doesn't have anything to do with like digital products, just because they keep seeing the completion rates going up. Yeah, and then there are a few critical questions to ask before introducing any gamification into your class or choosing the platform that has gamification. Is that is the gamification targeted towards a pedagogical need? So, for example, in mathematics, we know that students need to keep practicing, but on the other hand, they need to keep practicing. They also need to apply their skills. Or is gamification on that platform is more focused on just meeting the metric of coming back to the platform? And this is the case that everyone is raving about for Duolingo these days. So people are saying, hey, is Duolingo optimizing for coming back to the platform, or is it optimizing for learning? Now, like Duolingo is a bit of extreme case. They do have math, by the way. But you know, it's a lot of times this question of gamification is a lot more subtle for like very complex platforms like IXL or like Knowledge Hook and Prodigy. So this is something for educators to ask themselves. Yeah. Okay. And then also any platform that you choose, any tool that you choose is bound to have a hidden curriculum. So, you know, at Teachers College, they spend quite a lot of time talking about explicit curriculum, like what we teach, and implicit curriculum, what something that we don't really like maybe say out loud too often, but something that's implied. So what platforms usually tend to teach implicitly is like they communicate, sometimes they communicate values of what mathematics is and how it is done. For some platforms, what I'm seeing within educators community, a lot of educators are saying that some platforms instill in students this understanding that mathematics is something that you can like memorize easily and go through the motions. And as long as you go through the motions, you're always correct. This is difficult to battle because sometimes it even happens in real classroom. Like, for example, you teach a student how to solve a quadratic equation, like you give them a formula, you show them a few times how to do it, they memorize it, but then once you start asking them like deeper questions or you word it slightly differently, you understand that maybe they've just went through the motions. So this is one concern that some educators have with platforms. Again, this can be mitigated with instructors in real life, just explaining to students and being pretty clear about applications. Yeah, so basically, sometimes also learning platforms can favor speed, especially if it's gamified platforms, sometimes speed plays the role. And sometimes there's over focus on accuracy. So you've seen in the classroom, I'm sure, that there's some students who would probably a lot of times have answer which is slightly wrong, but they would get to it in the right way. And that's like, to me, for example, as an educator, that's a lot more valuable than someone just spitting right answers at me, but not really understanding how to get them or like looking them up somewhere. So yeah, and then here are just like a few examples of AI-powered learning math platforms which are trending right now. I would say top three these days are still Khan Academy, Dreambox, Prodigy is still up on top, like for a slightly lower level, like K to 12. And basically, all of them recently introduced quite a lot of AI-powered features. For example, Prodigy keeps personalizing quest-based math experiences that teachers have a lot of control over, but also AI-based algorithms are personalizing those quests for the needs of the students. Dreambox has a lot of predictive learning pathways that actually adapt in real time. And Khan Academy has lots of AI-generated problem sets with adaptive difficulty. And I keep hearing again more and more that many teachers are actually turning to Khan Academy and Dreambox as their primary source of curriculum teaching. And basically, it's gone. I think it's going from teacher looking at the curriculum document to, like looking what's in there, transferring it to their lesson plan, towards more like teachers looking at different larger platforms, seeing what's in there and comparing it like, oh, is it also in the curriculum? Okay, we'll do it. So pretty interesting trend. Yeah, so basically what we need to do, as I mentioned right at the beginning, since we know that AI will continue to have a prominent space in mathematics education, we need to actually find a way to empower each other as educators, empower other teachers and instructional designers to see that the role is evolving. So I would say that AI tools are definitely not here to diminish any role of educators, but in fact to elevate this role. So I would say with the presence of all those tools, the role of educator inside the classroom, like a live human, is actually arguably even more important than it used to be before, because now the role of educator is also to teach students how to use those AI tools responsibly. Because as we've seen, there's so many pitfalls that different AI tools can fall into. And you need to be able, as a student, as a teacher, you need to be able to recognize them and mitigate them. And sometimes those pitfalls are easier to observe than other times. But this is something that actively needs to be reinforced. It's not like young people, like students of all ages, it's not like they will figure it out on their own. It's one more of responsibility of a real human educator. Yeah. So again, like speaking of challenges that those platforms are facing, basically what we have right now on the market of different ed tech tools is we came to the point of, I think, oversaturation. And this is me saying more from my like ed tech like product manager hat. What we're seeing is that on one hand, there is a very universal demand for personalization of different education tools. But on the other hand, we see different ed tech giants just growing larger and larger. At the same time, they want to find what's the one fits all model. But one fits all model does not exist anymore. For example, large learning management systems like D2L, Brightspace, they're growing wider and wider, keep looking for ways to like satisfy all of the education segments. But then there's so many customization requests that it's no longer possible to execute on this roadmap. So we're in this a little bit of like, I would say, customization, like oversaturation crisis, which I think will like, in fact, be beneficial. I think it will bring many new ed tech tools, which will be like customizable and a lot more targeted in the future. But what we're now seeing is that platforms, large platforms, in some cases have harder time adjusting to curriculum changes quickly. But new AI tools are actually helpful with that because AI tools can scan new curricula, they can keep track of what changed and introduce that change into the platform faster. Yeah. Okay. So now just like a little bit in terms of AI generated curriculum content that we're seeing. So basically, any model that not only presents content to students, but also generates the content. Like, for example, Khan Academy has AI generated learning content, so is Dreambox. Large language models offer really powerful capabilities to generate a lot of content in terms of options. So, for example, if a student doesn't understand one problem set, they can deal with another problem set. AI will generate it for them faster. But these tools can draft like contextualized word problems and creative quiz items, lesson plans for teachers pretty fast. But they're not always perfect. So, as we know, mathematical reasoning really requires precision and it requires creativity. And sometimes AI tools are just like not on par with teacher standards just yet. I'm pretty sure we're going to have this conversation next year and they are going to be on par. We're going to be talking about different problems. But right now, a lot of teachers are saying that yes, sometimes they would generate a problem set for their students, it would be perfect. Another time they will generate a problem set and they want to redo it from scratch. So I would say instead of maybe imperfection, we can use the word inconsistency. There's still a bit of inconsistency for AI generated content for education. That's why, and basically the solution for that is just, be vigilant. Human oversight is still so important. Yeah, and then also some teachers have indicated recently that AI tools have a little bit harder time fully adapting to this, just equity implications. So adjusting to students with different needs and just being sensitive to language proficiencies and cultural backgrounds and learning pace of students. So one thing which, for example, right now at RedThread, we're writing a learning management platform for it's going to be called Real Genius. It's going to be for humanities as well as STEM subjects. And it's going to use video clips and AI generated lessons to teach students about various concepts. And in order to mitigate this, so like a bias and this cultural insensitivities, what we're implementing is various AI educator personas that teachers can choose from. And like one persona, for example, can cater more to students who have special needs. Another persona can cater to students who are overperforming. So there are ways to mitigate that, but it's first of all technically difficult. And this is something that educators still need to watch out for because there are still language biases, pacing assumptions, and just different assumptions in terms of expectation of student academic performance that AI may have. And the educator is not always aware of. Yeah, and then in terms of mastery-based learning, which is very widely discussed point these days, what we have is AI tools are actually really good at assessing mastery. If by mastery you mean that everyone is getting all the questions right, they're getting them right within the same period of time, and this is all we're concerned about. But we know that it's not always the case. We know that in the class we have students who are slower performing, but they really know their stuff. They really know their concepts. We know that there are students who are, for example, dyslexic. It's easy for them to make lots of small mistakes. They don't get to the right answer, but they have the right ways. They have deeper understanding of the subject. So things are not that simple. This is something that AI tools are still struggling with a little bit. But the AI-powered assessments are getting more and more accurate. And now we have tools like even built in within Turnitin that are able to get as good as to even read into students' handwriting. They're able to compare different students' answer against the answers that instructor provided and see how close the student is matching that. So getting better, but still something to be aware.
Mariya, sorry for the interruption. Just 1 minute left.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, we're actually almost done. Yeah,
Okay.
here I just have a few stats here, basically just saying that, there's also economic factor at play because obviously those learning management systems, they cost a lot to adopt, but on the other hand, what we see is digital curriculum market is on the rise, so cost over 8 billion. And yeah, basically, we do have research that's showing that yes, AI-powered tools are here to stay. They have good initial impact on students' learning. And this is something, actually, this is a field of research that's still widely open. So maybe someone here is going to pursue that. I know I would definitely look into those topics deeper if I have lots and lots of time. So yeah. And yeah, another thing, and this one is just there's a lot of text here just because whenever it comes to data privacy, I feel like I need to put things there. We don't have to discuss all of it, but just a reminder that please, if you are introducing a new AI tool in your classroom, it's definitely worth reading through at least privacy policy for a couple of minutes or asking other AI tools to summarize it for you, so you never know what the caveats are. And here for this one, I mean, I don't know if we're going to share out the slides. It's just a checklist for educators to go through when they're making a decision which platforms to adopt in their classroom. Basically, it just covers what I've talked about so far. And this slide basically just says that some models are hybrid in terms of AI powered and not AI powered, and this is also an option. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mariya, for your insightful presentation on our educational platform.